Ah, look at that. This Hangout on Air is live. Well, this is the first one of these that we've set up, and obviously we have no idea what we're doing just yet. So turns out I have to invite everyone manually. And I don't know everyone's Gmail accounts, so it might take a little while to get it set up. But I thought I would just go live at the time that we said it was going to happen anyways, even though we aren't fully set up yet. I wish I had like some music or something we could play in the background. That'd be nice. But I don't. Be right back. Alrighty, I just invited NV Geeks. Hopefully he gets the invite and he's able to join up here.
Yep.
Okay.
Where's everyone else?
It's just you and me right now.
I don't think anyone. How many people wanted to come today?
Like, I think we had at least 4 or 5. Like you and me, Parker, Matt. I don't know if Matt was going to come actually. And then I think JD wanted to get here too. I don't know. The thing is that, like I said, I have to manually, invite everybody, and I don't have basically anybody's Gmail accounts. So there's that.
Hold on, let me see.
If you want to invite other people,
No,
I don't know if you'll be able to do that.
Yeah, it won't let me invite people.
Okay, well, just you can send me more DMs if you want of more names of people.
I believe Parker's is just Parker Moore.
I've invited Parker. He's being lazy, I guess. I don't know.
Well, I know Parker didn't want to do it till tomorrow because he had a lot of shit going on.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. I thought most of the people voted for tomorrow.
Well, whenever I did that that little like whenisgood.net thing, there were near 0 times that everyone agreed on. So I just chose the one that the most amount of people agreed on, and I don't actually know who it was that wasn't able to come at this time. I guess it could have been Parker.
Actually, I think it was because I had a lot of shit going on with a client that I'm working with, so I haven't been available at all. But I haven't had daytime.
Well, I think we got somebody watching us because somebody just posted in the issue that it does work, so that's nice.
Oh, I can't even see that. Hold on. How do I get to the QA?
How do you get to the Q&A? On the left-hand side, there's a little like toolbar, and you can click on the Q&A button, and it should give you some stuff. Oh, I see Parker.
Hey guys.
What's up, Parker?
Not too much.
How's it going?
He's been here for
I've been here, let's see, for 5 minutes and 50 seconds, apparently.
Sorry, I was a few minutes late.
I don't know how I'm ever going to forgive you, to be honest.
Oh well. All right,
Well,
so let's get started. What do you think?
Go ahead.
All right.
Yeah, I'm down. I mean, it could just be us 3, I suppose. I'm not sure who else wanted to come up in here.
one more contributor who wanted to come. The guy who spoke before, just before we started talking, he's a contributor, isn't he?
Who, Alfred?
Was that him? Hold on, I have to double check.
It looks like Alfred's watching. He posted
Yeah.
the way it works.
And
So-
I see that there's one live viewer right now. So yes, we're famous. YouTube famous, guys.
Fantastic.
I mean, I can invite him. I just don't have his email address. That's all. Like, I'd love to see his beautiful face in here.
I think it's alfredzing at
Whoa.
gmail.com.
Are you saying my icon's not beautiful or something?
Oh, no, dude. It looks like a way bigger hat than it actually is. It's just like an optical illusion.
I actually did that on purpose. I like to point my hat up when I take a picture.
Well, there you go. Mission accomplished. It also looks like your forehead is enormous.
Actually, my forehead probably is enormous.
I just invited Alfred, so hopefully he's able to join up on here with us.
Sweet. Yeah. Yeah, I think this was the time that didn't really work for anyone in Europe, unfortunately, because it's like 6 a.m.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know who it was who said at the very beginning of this entire thread. I guess it was Charlie, but yeah, it's a logistical nightmare. We can't get it all at the same time working properly, and he's right.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well,
And that's why we record it, right?
Yeah, I guess.
I guess if we do it again, it should be like maybe a month ahead of notice.
Well, dude, I opened that issue frickin' on May 8th, so...
I just noticed it like 2 days ago when we started
Yeah,
talking.
because somebody picked it up again and was like, hey, this is actually a good idea, we should do it. And then we're just like, all right, finally. And then it happened, so I'm happy that it's actually happening. Even though this is probably like the most alpha of alphas when it comes to this kind of thing. But you know what? It's actually working pretty well so far. We just need to probably get everything set up a little bit more early.
Well, my suggestion
Anyway, go ahead.
to everybody on the GitHub tracker and let them know it's live. There were a few people who said they could make it, but they aren't in here yet. So maybe they just don't know it's live.
Oh, I posted in the issue that it's live and going. So.
You posted the link as well?
Well, the link was actually I don't know
Yeah.
if a YouTube link is in there.
There's just a Google Plus link.
That should work. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely, it should work.
Okay, cool. Well, I'm glad then. I guess we can get cracking. There are a few issues that have come up recently that probably would be good topics of conversation, but at least for right now, I think what most people want to know about is like what's on your mind for Jekyll 3.0 and what the ideas around the philosophy of it are and stuff.
Absolutely, absolutely. I had a conversation with Ben Bolter, I'm sure you've seen around the issues, who's been a huge supporter of Jekyll through his work at GitHub. He's been really evangelizing Jekyll in the GitHub government community, the government community in general, and has been a huge help in sort of understanding the product and where it's going. So he and I talked, and it was very productive. Basically, what we want to do is we want to bring Jekyll back to its roots. We want to bring it back to a place of simplicity, a place of extensibility, and a place of speed. That being said, we don't want to make it. We don't want it to become so hacker focused that it becomes impossible to use because it's so highly configurable that you don't even. You're just faced with this wall of configuration options, and you're stunned, and you're paralyzed by choice. So, just going through each of those three aspects of Jekyll 3, my ideas. Simplicity means to me using Jekyll. It should be simple to use. It should be easy to use. It should be the errors that occur should be easy to handle, easy to diagnose, easy to fix. This is anything in the GitHub issues that has the UX label. Backwards compatibility around breaking changes should be explicit, should be well handled, etc. Configuration is a piece of this, which we've been talking about. Simplicity also means the installation of Jekyll. Right now, Jekyll requires Python, and it requires some
Node.
Node. It requires some native extensions, some C extensions. It's just crazy.
Developer tools. It is kind of crazy. I agree.
Yeah. So I'd love to make Jekyll easier to install as well. So I've been working a little bit with the Omnibus Jekyll repository to create a .pkg file, a package file for Macs that would put in /opt/Jekyll a fully encapsulated installation of GitHub Pages, the Jekyll install for GitHub Pages. So that includes Jekyll mentions. So then anyone who's using GitHub Pages can also have the same environment on their local machine. It's pre-compiled Ruby, et cetera, installed and symlinked to user local bin, such that you install the package file and it works. So the installation of Jekyll should also be something that's very simple. Want to remove as many dependencies as possible, as many default dependencies as possible, make it easier to extend, which is my next point. There's also some talk around Liquid C that I've recently heard about. Liquid C, I didn't know that it existed. C extensions around that increase the performance of Liquid that I'd love to make optional as well. And that sort of brings me to my next point, which is extensibility. So Jekyll should be way more extensible than it currently is. Right now you can create a generator, you can create a converter, and that's pretty much it. You can create liquid tags. There are three places to interact with the pipeline that Jekyll's created, that your content flows through. It would be fantastic if there were more places where you were able to interact with your own content and sort of massage it into what you'd like it to be when it's dumped out into the static site. So Jordan's been doing fantastic work on sort of a hook-based architecture. It's a complete rewrite of Jekyll. I want to sort of take some ideas from that, some inspiration from that, and move those ideas, into the current code base. So rather than starting from the ground up, which I think we'll punt until Jekyll 4, just to make sure that current plugins can still work, etc. I want to create a new suite of hooks, a hook-based plugin extensibility architecture that makes it as easy as possible for individuals to massage their data any way they please, so that it comes out the right way, and allows them to extend Jekyll in such a way that they can read in and output their own data, etc. So they can have full control of sort of side pipelines around the main pipeline, as well as injection points within the main pipeline. And the third is speed. So Alfred has been doing fantastic work. His pull request for incremental regeneration is simple and truly effective. Really impressed by what I've seen there. And I'd love that to be in Jekyll 3, if not an earlier minor release, Jekyll 2.6 or something, 2.7. We all know that Jekyll can be slow. Some people blame Ruby. Some people blame Liquid. I think there's plenty of room for improvement within our code base without having to tinker around with Ruby or Liquid. And I'd love to make sure that for Jekyll 3 we're focusing on benchmarks, we're focusing on speed, so that when you have a massive site with 10,000 posts, it doesn't take you 3 hours to generate it. So those are sort of the three driving principles of Jekyll 3 for me. Those are sort of the ideas that I've been running with as I've been triaging issues and formulating my vision for what I'd like to see in Jekyll 3. So.
Cool. I think in order to hammer out a good way to develop all of it, to kind of figure out some of the terminology around some of that stuff, like what the different steps of the hook-based plugin system are going to be in the development pipeline, or not the development pipeline, but the generation pipeline, I guess. What is it that Jekyll does whenever you hit Jekyll build? What are the different steps and what are they called? So that way people can make logical, they can inject their code logically into a place that makes sense for what they want to do. I think
the hook-based system isn't
sorry, go ahead.
The hook-based system isn't necessarily based on what we want it to be. It's based on what you want it to be. That's the point of having a hook. We give a bunch of base hooks for our own stuff, which we plug in the blogging system, we plug in the asset system if we choose to put that in there, and we can plug in anything else we choose to, and each of those make their own hooks. But at the end of the day, it's up to you to create which hooks you want for your own system. So if you create a plugin and you want people to extend your plugin, you create your own hooks. You tell it what hooks you want, and we give you a set of hooks in places that we think that you should be allowed to hook into. And the major pieces that they need to hook into are where I always have problems and where a lot of developers have problems. The main problems that they run into are, how do I tap into the way that Jekyll does Liquid so that I can extend that? How do I tap into just before Liquid puts in all its variables so that I can add the stuff that I want to add? How do I do the simple things that should be simple without having to monkey patch and risk everything? And that's what the entire hook plug-in based system is. Where we're saying, look, this is all extensible, stop monkey patching like crazy. We want the code to be simple and easy so that maybe GitHub can start allowing plugins because now they can easier understand what you're trying to do. With monkey patching, it's not safe for GitHub to say, okay, we're going to put your plugin on there because you're monkey patching everywhere. And that just makes things not necessarily dangerous security-wise, but dangerous in random crashes, stuff like that, which GitHub doesn't want to deal with.
I guess the next question, it's a good segue, I suppose, going into a lot of the work that you've been doing, Parker, with like yanking out some of the big things, or small things, I guess, either way, that were in the core of Jekyll's code base, and then putting them into their own repositories that get like included later on by like the gem dependencies and stuff. Is that something that like, what's the status on that? How far do you want to go with that? And like, what's the end game on something like that, at least? What do you have in mind, I guess, with it, basically?
Totally. That's a great question. What I've been trying to do is extract various components of Jekyll into separate gems such that it's more flexible, such that I'm dogfooding my own interface. With the first converter I think I built that was for Jekyll was the SAS converter, and it was important for me to be using my own interface such that I was understanding what any other plugin developer would be using, and the struggles they would have to go through, etc. When and a great example that I found, or a great example of a struggle in creating a converter is that you don't get the file name. So if something goes haywire, then you have to understand the proper way to handle that. So currently you'd throw an error, and our conversion system would handle outputting the file name, etc. So not knowing that going in, not understanding the way that the system works is an impediment to creating great plugins. I think Jekyll Core should be very, very simple. It should be basic configuration management. It should have the idea of the site pipeline. So an understanding of the site. So when I say Jekyll build, Jekyll should have within its core the understanding of a site, know how to read in site elements, know how to write site elements, know how to convert the basics, markdown in this case. I'm considering removing textile from Jekyll Core. It sort of hangs there with maybe 15%, 20% of users using it at most, and it should have Liquid as well. So having the basic pipeline there, and then using the interfaces that we ship to create official plugins that can then be used on GitHub pages, etc. Whatever the GitHub folks allow. So. Right.
Yeah, it seems like it would be a good way. If you have something like that, you could easily just take a plugin and then toss it into a thing that will just test basic security things and be like, yeah, this is fine. It's not going to break everything in the world. And then it can become a thing that you can include in whatever configuration file you include in your repo whenever you want to host it up on GitHub pages. And it should be smart enough, I imagine. The next question that I wanted to ask is, like, I know you work with people at GitHub, obviously you work with Balter and stuff like that. Do they have a idea of how they might want to go forward with those plugins as well? Like, is it going to be kind of something like what I just described, or have they thought about it at all? Like, where you have a big file that says, hey, I want these plugins, and they're all whitelisted, so it should be fine. And then they just get loaded without a problem. Or is it basically just like, sorry, go ahead.
They have no plans to support user created plugins at the moment. At least when I left the company at the end of July. The security implications are vast. They do have a considerable amount of security in place, but because Pages runs alongside GitHub.com, it's the same stack. Then you run into issues where having these arbitrary data access issues where you can read the GitHub source code because you've exploited some access issue. So
right.
GitHub security team has to review every single piece of code that runs on their servers. As such, it would be absolutely impossible, an astronomical effort to review every single plugin that all users were using in order to whitelist it. So that's why the GitHub Pages gem was created. We'd love to have a series of plugins that people can use to opt in, but aren't automatically there, such that it provides extensibility with security, with the security component there as well, because it's out there.
Yeah.
Let's turn that off into a topic. I mean, should we really be basing our security decisions based on GitHub? I mean, I can understand creating a gem that GitHub pre-approves, but now you're just offloading all of the work onto people who are being paid to do it onto people who aren't being paid to do it, and that's not a very viable model. I mean, look at how it worked out for Joint. I mean, they forked off and moved on their way and decided, I'm not going to do the corporation's bidding. I mean, should we really be basing our decisions on what GitHub really wants, or should we be asking GitHub, how can we work with you instead of what can we do for you?
So I have sort of two thoughts on that. One is they're our biggest user base. Our biggest user base is at least as far as I can tell, is GitHub Pages. 500,000 websites probably. Some vast amount of Jekyll sites that to me, if I'm shipping, as I ship Jekyll, as we push this train forward, it's important that we consider at least their thoughts such that, and their constraints such that they're willing to upgrade with some speed. Otherwise they either won't accept new versions. So if we ship Jekyll 3 without enough security in mind, then it takes a lot of work for them, which they're not really interested in putting in, to upgrade. And therefore, no one on GitHub Pages then has access to Jekyll 3. So yes, I agree that it'd be fantastic if they would pay me for any security code that I'm writing within Jekyll, or pay us for this work, because we're not writing this for GitHub Pages, but at the same time it's a massive user base, and it's something that when we ship features, I want to make sure everyone gets access to those. So by making certain strategic decisions around security allows us to access that user base in a way.
That brings up another question. I mean, there was a past where somebody, I think it was you, Parker, who was trying to solve a symlink problem. And I consistently broke that problem down, and that there is no way that we can guard against that kind of behavior, because this is Ruby. Are these the kind of security problems that we're told to solve that we can't necessarily solve? This is something that has to be solved on the system, not something that has to be solved in the language itself.
Sure, and so that's why they don't accept any arbitrary Ruby code. So that's why we can't have HAML. If we had HAML, if we had arbitrary Ruby code, if we had our own custom plugins, then you can get around all of these protections. If all that you have is Markdown files, HTML files, image files, whatever, if all that you have is these static files that you're inputting into Jekyll and that Jekyll's consuming, then Jekyll can sanitize as it wishes, because it's not requiring any of the plugins, and all the plugins that it does have, these gem-based plugins, are audited by the security team. So
why don't we find a way to work with GitHub and Travis CI? We already know that we can push code up to Travis CI, all of Jekyll, and generate our entire site inside of Travis CI inside of a Docker image that's entirely secure. So why not find a way to work with GitHub and say, okay, look, maybe we can find a way to allow people to do whatever they want in whatever way they want, and somehow we have Travis push it back to a private, not necessarily a private, but a separate branch that has only the HTML files in it, which is what GitHub published on.
I don't know. I'm not sure. That seems like completely beyond what we should be thinking about. I mean, maybe that's just me. I don't think that. I think that GitHub has a product, right? And it's called GitHub Pages. And what they do is they use Jekyll to generate to generate a site, and they'll host it for you for free. But I don't know. I mean, I feel like the relationship between Jekyll and GitHub shouldn't be any more than they use something that we are making, right? And Parker's right that they're our biggest customer, basically, and we got to make something that they'll want to buy.
Well,
and if they don't want.
I mean, maybe color me wrong or however you want to label it, but they're our biggest customer because we're catering to them mostly. I mean, go look at Nanoc. Nanoc does what we want to do in the future already, and they're highly successful outside of GitHub Pages. I think our major problem is that we're constraining certain features based on what GitHub needs, when maybe we could find a way to work with GitHub and still offer those features in a better way and broaden our user base to people who actually need something and don't want to use GitHub Pages, because maybe they need something that's a lot more fault tolerant. But then again, GitHub is really fault tolerant now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. I also think that, it would be, I think the goal should be to make it as easy as possible to make a site just right out of the gate, right? If you want to customize the crap out of the thing, you can still do that. You can still host everything all on your own. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. But should we put priority on those kinds of use cases, or should we be putting priority on the people who want to get something done really quickly and really easily right now? I feel like it should be more of the get things done quick and easy right now than like catering to the more complicated setups.
Well, by that logic, what is easy about Jekyll right now? I can't do a Rails generator style page unless I get Octopress, and Octopress is great and all, but it's not easily extensible for a new person. It's rather complicated. Even I found it complicated when I first started working with Octopress. That was a couple years ago. I mean, I haven't really played with it lately. We don't have anything in there that's necessarily easy for the users, so I mean, we can't argue for or against usability if we don't really have it. I don't know.
I get the feeling that it's pretty damn easy to use right now. I have no problem at all using it, and I know a lot of people have issues like getting started, but I think it's mainly just like a conceptual thing. Like the idea of a static site is different, like compared to what a WordPress or a Drupal or a Joomla or a Rails or whatever kind of system you're using is. It's a paradigm thing that people need to get out of, and once they break that and once it clicks with them, then it becomes way easier. I think what we need to be doing more than anything else, and this is the next topic that I wanted to start talking about, is helping people break from that little block that they have in their minds, where it's like, this is a static site generator. What does that mean? How do I do stuff dynamically? Because you totally still can do things dynamically on Jekyll. It's just you have to do it in a different way, and it's way quicker and way more secure. But getting people over that hump and having it finally click with them, I think has been a challenge in the Jekyll help community for sure, and also getting over basic technical things like getting their rig set up properly and that kind of thing. Also, most people haven't ever used Ruby before,
Well, that's going to be hard for any system. I mean, I think the easiest way to break the barrier is to create a generator system. Aside from the plugins, there's really nothing that we can do to make it easier for them. I mean, I honestly don't know what we could do to make it easy for them. I mean,
I think it's mainly just it's documentation. Like, we had an idea a year ago that had to do with, and I'm pretty sure Parker came up with it. The idea was basically that we would create screencasts that would be basically just like YouTube videos of you or me walking people through what they would do if they were to be creating a brand new site and what kind of issues they could come across and how they would resolve those. I think that's a really cool idea, and I would love to do that. I'm not good at producing content, so I don't really know exactly how to do that. But there might be someone in the community who would be really good at something like that. And we could probably put out a call for something like that, and people would probably get interested right away.
I think that's a good idea.
Me too.
Yeah, and that was actually one of the topics. Well, it was an issue that got posted just earlier today or yesterday or something like that, where a person wanted to end our resources section, and it's an idea that I had a while ago too, and it didn't make a lot of sense back then, but I think it makes some more sense now, which is like kind of to create an official, not necessarily like technical documentation thing, because we kind of already have that, but it's not really that technical, I guess. But more of like an official blog of like, these are the most recently frequently asked questions that we've been coming up with lately, and this is how you get over them, and just kind of like writing little tutorials and how-tos and stuff like that, and do that in an official capacity as opposed to just like linking in a wiki page on the Jekyll repo to a blog post that somebody wrote and is hosting wherever. What do you think about that one, Parker?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I mean, when I created the screencasts repo, the idea was to create our own content. We are the ones that are keeping up with the features most quickly. We're the ones that are writing the features, so I guess ostensibly we would have the greatest understanding of the features. And as such, we could create tailored solutions to these common problems, as well as tailored solutions to or ideas for using these new features. So one common thing,
like
as an example, was
basically, right?
I'm sorry.
Like best practices kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. One great example is collections. We released collections in Jekyll 2, and people were like, "What is this? I'm really excited about it, but I have no idea how to use it. I have no idea what it is."
Yeah, I was really confused.
Yeah, and
It's fair.
I knew what it was. Mislav was the guy who suggested it at the Jekyll Mini Summit last January. And so he knew what it was, and then Ben Balter knew what it was, and a couple other guys who had sort of got, a bunch of people who had worked on it. But beyond that, if you don't understand the code base, if you don't understand how Jekyll is consuming this content, how Jekyll's working with it, massaging it, and then outputting it, then it's difficult to understand, okay, a collection is a series of structured content that can either be output directly as discrete files or used within other pages as well. So you can create a collection of API-related documentation documents that then you can put onto a singular page. You can output the document output, etc. So because it's transformed before pages are, because it's transformed and rendered before pages are, then it's necessarily batches of content that are convertible, unlike it includes, and also contain metadata. So sort of have this great value. But there was no one explaining that. So people have sort of had to discover on their own.
Yeah, and people knew that they wanted collections without knowing what collections were while it was being launched too. Like people were like, "Hey, I have a thing where I have a whole bunch of like pages that are related to one another, but they're not blog posts really, and I want them to be iteratable and like I want to loop and stuff like that on those." And the feature was there, right? It was always there since the release of 2.0, obviously, and I think I've directed 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 people to the collections, documentation page on Jekyll RV, because it's exactly what they want. It's just a matter of explaining it properly so that they can understand it. That's the thing that they want to use for their use case.
It's still really drastically confusing to work with collections. I mean, I read the collections page and I didn't understand it at all. Then I went and started looking at the code and I got even more confused because the code jumped everywhere. I think in this case with the collections, it's not only a matter of documentation, it's also a matter of the way that the code is organized inside of the system. Because I couldn't follow from step A to step B what was going on with collections. So I just gave up and I was like, I'm walking away from collections. I'm backing up.
Yeah, it's another it's a issue when it comes to like content curation. You know, I mean, all of us are really smart people. Obviously, we can understand things, but like communicating things to people who have a background and you know what it is, you have to add an additional like array element to this. To your YAML config to get collections to render, and what does rendering mean, and what do you want your permalink to be, and stuff like that. Like, these are things that a lot of people don't even want to like think about. And I'm not necessarily sure that, like, obviously Jekyll shouldn't be doing anything magical with those, because that's like a thing that we're trying to get away from, obviously. But like, figuring out a better way to communicate, like how it all works, and like. I think it should be like some of our documentation is pretty vague, and that's fine. But going back to like the screencasts idea, I think we should be coming up with like targeted content specific to a use case that's common, and say, so here's what collections are on a base level. Implement them in a way that would make sense if this is what you're trying to do, right? And what the "this is what you're trying to do" thing is something that's like super common for that particular feature.
Well, I think
and I think we could probably do quite a bit of those. It's just a matter of like coming up with it. Someone taking the time and making it happen.
I think that's going to be too hard for people to do. I mean, I can come up with a use case for collections. I mean, if collections are something like a fact, then that's your greatest example is a fact, because lots of GitHub web pages that are for software, like Corebird and stuff like that, could just really use a fact that's neatly organized in files.
Dude, I can give you a perfect example of a collections use case, and it's something that I did myself, because I completely redid ObjectRocket.com, which is the website that I've been working on lately. I completely redid it in Jekyll. It's Jekyll now, and we have a whole bunch of legal documents that they're legal documents. So I made a legal collection. And there's a page, objectrocket.com/legal, and what it does is it loops through all of the legal documents in that collection. It renders out the title, it gives a link to them, and that's where they live. They just live in _legal in the root of the source, and it works perfectly, because if I need to add a new legal page, all I do is I just drop a new document in there, and then everything just happens automatically. It's super to know exactly what's going to happen. I think if we show an example like that in a cast, that it would work out really well. Like, people would be like, "Oh, I get it now. That's pretty easy, actually." I think that that would probably work pretty all right.
I think the nature of sort of what we're building, learning by example is the easiest way to approach the technology.
Right.
I think we would also have to curate text too. I mean, text has to come with that video, because I know more people that learn better from reading by example than will ever learn by listening to you talk by example. I mean, several programmers that I work with will tune you out when you're talking and teaching, but if they get to read it on their own time and walk away and come back, then they're more inclined to learn. So I think we would also have to curate text for that too.
Yeah, I mean, it would be accompanied by like a blog post that would basically outline the entire thing. Like, you can be like, all right, you can watch this YouTube video in one window, and then another video you can read along with us, and you'll have the code snippets and stuff right there with you. I think that's kind of the thing that you would do for something like that, right?
I do believe we have our first question.
Oh, do we? Sweet. I want to use this little app thingy.
I still had it open and he just opened it.
Questions. Oh, here we go. The question says, would you say you're looking to create more demonstrative documentation? In other words, creating documentation that shows how to use a Jekyll feature in a particular use case? Yeah, I think that's exactly what we should be doing. And I think that we should be collecting the use cases that we should be demonstrating based on issues that come through into the various repos that we manage, right? Like the help or just the regular Jekyll repo. If we start seeing a lot of questions regarding a specific feature and we feel like we could probably create some content that would create clarity within the community that would be beneficial, I guess, in general, then I think that would be a perfect opportunity for us to do something like that, for sure.
Absolutely. Just to interject, I also think that it would be fantastic to work with, so for new features especially, but also as we fix certain things, there are a series of individuals who are pretty prolific. They write fantastic blog posts that are retweeted and read by hundreds and thousands of people. These people, these sort of prolific members of the Jekyll community, it'd be great to reach out to them and say, hey, loved your blog post, fantastic. Would you be interested in making some other, doing the same sort of thing in some other medium, like creating a screencast? Would you be interested in walking through that with a screencast? We'll post it on our website. We'll make it even more known. It's sort of when someone's done a wonderful job already of explaining something, give them an official sort of endorsement of that explanation. Not just tweet about it, but also put it prominently on our website, like on the resources page, as you had mentioned.
Yeah, I agree completely. I wouldn't want it just to be one of the four guys doing it all the time, right? I would love for it just to be anybody from the community who feels like they can contribute to help explain to the rest of the community about a feature that they're really comfortable with and they have a lot of knowledge and experience with. And especially if they have a use case that was personally dealt with by them, and also an implementation that was personally dealt with by them. So that way they have full comfort and strength and knowledge of the situation, and they can confidently talk about it, which is exactly what you have to have for something like that, right?
Absolutely.
Let's see here. I guess that's about it to answer that question. That's kind of cool. I like how that's set up.
That is cool.
I don't really know what else we could talk about. I think we hit quite a bit of stuff. I think that obviously the screencasts thing is super exciting to me, and I hope that it's exciting other people too. I want to start. I have a really good example of one that I want to do now, and I'll probably try to get that thing going within the next week or so, and then that might be able to kick off other ones that other people want to do.
I still don't actually know what's going on in Jekyll 3.0. What are the changes that are coming? I mean, I'm more interested in performance because Jekyll has all the features in the world that you could want, but it's still really, really slow compared to other systems.
Absolutely. So if there's anyone who has a couple hours and has knowledge of StackProf or RBTrace or whatever sort of performance tools you can get your hands on, I want to run Jekyll through that. It'd be fantastic. I ran some benchmarks with StackProf and found some small optimizations and had a couple PRs based on that. That helped a little bit. But it would be fantastic to further optimize object creation, garbage collection, etc., and really make this a quick system. One of the reasons I think people are moving from Ruby to Go or Ruby to JavaScript or from Ruby to anything that seems to be faster is this idea that it's so hard to optimize Ruby. I really don't think that's true. I think what we need to do is we need to be leveraging the runtime and understanding the runtime better. That's not something I've done very well. I've been learning Ruby sort of along the way. I knew Ruby a little bit beforehand, had done some Ruby on Rails beforehand, but I've really started to understand the nuances. And so if there's anyone who's interested in getting their hands dirty with StackProf or a related tool and digging deep, diving deep, and especially if you have a massive site, if you have a large website, you can use jekylrb.com in the Jekyll repo if you don't. But if you have a large website, objectrocket.com might be one, then you have the opportunity to say, I have something that seems slow. It would be fantastic if I can and use that, basically, build that website with Jekyll's Ruby APIs and figure out where it's slowing down. Is it all because it's spending so much time in Liquid? Is it here? Is it there? Is it, sometimes we're accessing the Liquid API through several different tags, et cetera, et cetera. So,
well, the problem with big sites isn't that Jekyll is slow. It's not that it's coding a lot of objects. It's the classic problem that JavaScript enforces. fixing, well, Node.js, I guess I should say, enforces fixing by default, and that's that it doesn't block and it uses thread pools. And that's something that I brought up recently in another ticket, that we should probably consider using thread pools for Jekyll when we're doing a large site, so that we can read constantly and write constantly and have the I.O. shift itself based on the way that it needs to. If it can work inside of the memory, then it can work inside of the memory while it's reading something else, and just keep on working and working and working through the thread pool. That's a very efficient way to do things. And that's why people think JavaScript or Node.js, I guess you should say, is a lot faster, because it does do that. It unblocks the I.O. by thread pooling.
Right. Right. I agree, absolutely. If we can parallelize as much as possible all this work, this pipeline, the only problem with the pipeline, so ideally you have an input, you have the transformation of that input, and you have the output, right? With the system that we've built, we have a lot of interdependencies. We have includes, we have layouts, we have XYZ. So we have a series of things that when they're changed, we need to understand the dependency tree. Once we've done that, though, then we can say, okay, give me a certain input, and I know all the things that I need. And so you can create sort of pods around a series of codependent content, process that, and process in parallel other codependent pods, kind of. I'm not sure if that's what you're getting at, Jordan, but that's how I understood it.
Pooling, we need to take a naive approach to it, and that's, I don't know what's going on, so I'm just going to do it. And by that I mean, we pop something off the queue, we do what we need to do, and then if we need to do something else, we put it back onto the queue. So for example, we have no idea what needs to go on from step 1 to step 2, but we know that we need to complete step 1. So say step 1 is reading. We go ahead and reread that file. Then we then we push ourselves back onto the queue so that we can process that file. And it just keeps on going and cycling and cycling and cycling through the queue until it's finally done with the entire queue, and then it's done. I think that'll bring up a lot of performance itself. That's something, I mean, I just recently learned how to do thread queues quite heavily, but I mean, a lot of other programmers have a lot more experience in it. But once I first experienced it, I was like, I'm sold. Thread pools they're the business. I mean, I love them. They brought up performance of a piece of my software by 3 times. I mean, it was really awesome. But I mean, that's what the way I see it. It's just be naive about it.
Yeah. Is there like a clear path forward to enabling multi-threaded activity in Jekyll? Like, is there like an obvious place to do it that would make a lot of sense? That would be really easy to implement.
Well, I've spent more time rebuilding Jekyll than I have actually browsing the current Jekyll source. But if there's a current place where a lot of the things are currently done, then we can put ourselves into there. So if we have a place that's reading, that's processing, and it's writing, all in a similar spot, then we can inject ourselves into there and create the pool right there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think where in the pipeline where we know that there aren't a lot of codependencies, so in reading and writing, for example, we just want to read and output, right? That would be a great opportunity to leverage a thread pool. Jekyll tends to be I/O bound. CPU is not generally as much of an issue. It tends to be just waiting for the disk to respond with some data. So if we can try to, as much as possible, sort of parallelize that as much as the global interpreter lock will allow us to, or if you're using Rubinius, right? If you're using Rubinius or JRuby, give us, leverage that true threading, so that you can extract as much performance gain from that architecture as possible. Let's say start with reading and writing.
Well, I mean, the GIL is a big problem, I guess. I assume it's always been a problem. I hear everybody complaining about it. I've never had a big problem with it. Then again, I'm on an enterprise SSD, so I don't see many disk problems to begin with. But I mean, back when I did have a mechanical disk, that was a big problem with Jekyll, was the I/O. I mean, it was just like, why is it not doing something else while it's reading this so that it feels like it's being faster? If it's I/O bound, then we should be popping off the I/O and then pushing on the processing of whatever the I/O did. So, like I said, we read it, we push it onto the queue, it processes it once it's unblocked. It's just popping and pushing and popping and pushing until it's done. And I think that'll make it feel a little faster because it is kind of paralyzing itself. But we will still have to use mutexes here and there too. to make sure that the data is consistent. But that's not necessarily a big problem. That might, I mean, maybe someone knows more, but I don't think that it would still increase the performance, I guess is what I'm saying at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to see a pull request for the current code base. I'm not sure how. Maybe I can talk with you more, Jordan, about how you went about building this into the other system where you saw the 3 times performance gain. But it would certainly be a huge win if we could speed up Jekyll by 3 times. That'd be great.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't really ever have any huge performance problems. I mean, it's a static site generator, so as long as it generates static pages, then I'm cool with it, right?
Well,
and the incremental regeneration stuff is awesome. That's going to help quite a bit whenever it comes to, like, if you have a big site, all you got to do is kick it off once, and then it'll be smart about how it regenerates stuff for you. But we've got a question that came in from Jordan, and I want to answer it, and then I think that's about all time we've got.
Well, before we answer that, let me imply that I'm not saying we're going to get 3 times more performance. That was just that system. That was a horrible code base. I almost slapped the crap out of the programmer who originally did it. But that code base was really horrible. That's why it seemed such a... But Jekyll's not that bad. The code is badly organized, and you've heard me say that time and time again, that it's really badly organized. But it's not bad code. It's good code.
You're bad, Parker. You should feel bad. Just
Terrible.
kidding. Here we go. The question goes like this. Since Jekyll's creation, there have basically been a lot of other faster static site generators that have popped up. What are some of Jekyll's selling points that would convince a user to pick Jekyll over another platform? I can start by answering that question with the community. I mean, Jekyll has the most stars on GitHub, as far as I know. It's got the like, in terms of anything, I'm pretty sure. Well, not anything, mostly everything. It's got very active bunch of helping people like myself and like Alfred and like Jordan and like Parker, obviously. And the list, I could go on and on and on about the people who are in there always helping out. And it gets active updates all the time. There's always new stuff coming out. We're constantly thinking about new ways we can make people who are using Jekyll. I don't know. I don't follow a lot of other static site communities, but I'm pretty sure that they don't do stuff like this, you know. And they might, and I could be completely wrong, and I'm just basically making that up. But I'm pretty sure that they don't. Parker, get me out of this.
No, that was fantastic. I agree that the Jekyll community is fantastic. There's so many people. I can give you some general stats. I know that around 5,000 people are accessing JekyllRB.com every day. Disparate people. So that's pretty cool. There are at least 5,000 people during the weekdays who are actively using Jekyll and actively at least getting looking at our documentation. So there are certainly people who are keeping up with the ecosystem, and that's growing every day. So every week you can see it grows. The excitement around this technology is growing. So you're absolutely right. The community is fantastic. I think for me, the reason that I would pick up Jekyll over any other system is something that I've been really trying to do, which is try to make it dead simple. Try to make it something that when, hey, I want to write a blog. Okay, cool. Create a folder, put an underscore post in it, add a file with a certain file name with the date and your title, .md, and write. And that's almost it. You have to write an index.html so you can browse it, of course. But beyond that, you can get a page up. You can get a blog post up very quickly. The sort of driving principle for me has always been simplicity. Has always been something that this tool should be about your content. It shouldn't be about asking you what configuration options you want to do, what you want. It should be about, hey, I love that you're writing. I love that you're creating content for the web. I want to make it as easy as possible. That wasn't always the case, and I know we've complicated some things with some features, and certainly the the site template for Jekyll New is getting more and more complicated by the day. I'm trying to rein that in a little bit. But I think for me, I choose Jekyll because it's simple. Of course, I know it very well, so of course I would choose Jekyll. But I don't go to middleman. I don't go to any other static site generator because it doesn't have the same simplicity. It doesn't have the same simplicity.
Yeah.
It's the only word that I can use to describe it.
I have a comparison. It's kind of analogous, I suppose. I will never buy an Xbox One, and the reason is because it's much hardware that I will never use. Like, it has an IR blaster, an HDMI output, or an HDMI inputs and stuff like that, and I'll never use it. It's just wasted, potential. It's wasted money. It's wasted effort. But with like a PS4, it will play a game, and that's what I want to do with like gaming consoles, right? So I would compare Jekyll to like the PlayStation 4, where it will do exactly what you expect it to do. It'll do what you want it to do, and it'll make sense whenever it's doing it. There's no extra bells and whistles and weird surprises that you might get with other things. And I'm not knocking anything else, obviously. I don't have a lot of experience with a lot of other static site generators. All I know is that Jekyll is super duper predictable. You know exactly how it's going to behave and why. There's usually a methodology and like a reason behind it all. So that's how I would wrap it up. The last question here that came in from... Wait.
Just for a second. Jordan had a thought. Jordan had a thought.
I can tell you why I wouldn't select Jekyll, which might put this all into perspective.
Okay.
I mean, this is the same thing that I do with everyone else, and even myself, And these are probably reasons that maybe you would select Jekyll in the future. I mean, let's take, for example, Nanoc, one of the static generators that I have heavy experience with because of RVM when I was contributing there.
Yeah.
When I was working with Nanoc, the simplicity of Nanoc compared to compared to Jekyll was tremendous. I mean, with Nanoc, I wasn't working with tons of folders. There wasn't tons of files inside of the root. The configuration was a lot easier. They even had an advanced kind of RB kind of configuration to define how the pages actually got outputted compared to Jekyll. But the main thing that I focused on that I loved about Nanoc is that I could just do about.md and it would be /about index.html. And this is something that I brought up to you before that I did in my own Jekyll site as a plugin on a generator. That maybe in the future would be a reason that you would select Jekyll, because that in and of itself is simplicity. That's amazing simplicity. If I don't have to worry about folders and I can quickly create a file, then I can quickly work with Jekyll. One of the reasons that I wouldn't select Jekyll as well is because it doesn't have a generator. One of the things that I loved about Octopress that Octopress brought in, even though it was a little bit flawed because of the way that the ZSH handles things, and we already addressed that by a long time ago. But that was that Octopress allows you to generate a page. If Jekyll could do that, I would be stuck on Jekyll. And these are two reasons why I could never get any of my friends to convert over to Jekyll when they were on Nanoc. Because just the simplicity wasn't there for Jekyll. And everybody says that Jekyll's simple, but it's not really all that simple for somebody who doesn't know how to use Jekyll to use Jekyll. If we have, Ember's got a CLI now. Rails has a CLI. I think we need a CLI. And if we had a CLI, that would be the number one reason to pick Jekyll, because, hey, look, you could just install Jekyll and just do Jekyll create page. Game on.
Yeah. We have a Jekyll/Jekyll-compose repo, which is a series of commands. So it'd be awesome to ship that and iterate on that. So I don't know if you have time, Jordan, to just post an issue there about like sort of what your thoughts are about how you'd like to generate new pages, etc. Octopress has done. Brandon has rewritten much of Octopress as a gem. It's still in alpha beta sort of pre-release mode, but he's done a wonderful job of producing that code. So maybe I can convince him to separate it out into a gem and then integrate it into our system.
That was actually my thought there for a while, was why aren't we bringing in a lot of Brandon's code into Jekyll itself and bringing him in as a contributor, if he wants to manage that code after we bring it in, because he's got a ton of great ideas that have made Octopress really successful on top of Jekyll.
Totally.
It's like the #1 go-to place to get a nice Jekyll setup. Of course, like I said, back then it was hard to design in, but it was still the #1 place if you wanted to get up quickly.
Totally. And it still is.
Go on. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, not at all. I mean, I just an interjection. It still is. I see Hacker Newsletter, for example, I subscribe to, and I see, at least one website, 2 websites within that series of links that Cale Davis sends out every week. That is an Octopress site. It is something that you just run. You clone the repo, you run rake install, and then you run rake new post, and you give it a title, and boom, you write your content. And so
there doesn't go a day that I don't do an Octopress site. I mean, if I'm Googling for something that I don't understand, I'm bound to run into somebody who's running Octopress.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, he's got to be doing something right that we're not understanding that we can bring into Jekyll.
Exactly. Something, making deployment easier, making deployment, plugin concern would be great. Making generators as concern as well, I think is sort of completing the circle. So I have a site, or I have a site idea. How do you go from I have a site idea to I have a website now? With short of running our own, DNS and domain registry, we could absolutely help with that pipeline.
That's there was something about. Oh yeah, the way that the hooks work is actually. I mean, I've said it's spawned by other things, but Octopress is one of the major reasons that it's done. I mean, because when I worked with Octopress, it was monkey patching everywhere to get work done.
Yeah.
And I always thought that was a disaster. I was like, man, that's just crazy. I mean, I'm sorry he has to do that. But I mean, I think that's why we've got to put in a better plugin system, something more fluid.
Totally. Cool.
Dudes, I wanted to keep this just about an hour long, and we're coming up on that. I don't actually know how to pronounce his name. It's Neaton or Knighton, but he asked another question, which is a perfect way to end it, I think. When's the next town hall meeting planned for? Will we have hangout sessions other than town hall meetings to engage with the community? I don't know, man. This whole thing is just kind of in like an idea beta, trying it out and see how it goes. And I don't know. I had a lot of fun. This is good stuff. I think we were able to cover quite a bit of topics, and we have this like on record now, and it's kind of cool to have. I don't think we have another one planned right now, and I'm not sure if I would even consider this a town hall, although I guess it kind of is, because we've got dissension among the ranks and all kinds of stuff like that. So I don't know. I really had a lot of fun with this, and I'd love to do it again for sure. What do you guys think?
When I was reading that question, I'd love to do this maybe once a month. 12 sort of hangouts and live sessions a year seems like a pretty low commitment. Something very reasonable.
Yeah, there's definitely going to be enough stuff in a month's time to talk about it for an hour.
Absolutely. So my thought would be January 2nd. It's before. It's after everyone's recovered from New Year's. Speak
for yourself, buddy.
That's what I'm saying.
I'll be fine. You can watch. Maybe the 3rd as well. The 4th, most of us will go back to work, or school starts again, or whatever. So, so maybe that weekend. It's after the holidays. People are generally home from visiting parents or family or whatever. So. That is the proposal. We'll talk about it in maybe another issue, or we can continue using this one State of Jekyll issue. Can be a long-lived thread if we want. But yeah, absolutely, I'd love to do this again. It was great.
Yeah, cool. I agree.
I personally would, like I said in the chat, I would like to have just a hangout normally with everybody, not just contributors, with everybody. Even if it's right after this. Let them come in and start voicing what they want to say right then and there to us. Yeah. And it makes it easier to understand the community if we did something like that along with the town halls.
I will say that there might be a technical limitation to that, as I don't know if that's a capability of this particular tool. I mean, I guess it could be. This is my first time ever using this, so I don't know.
No, just like a non-recorded hangout. Just create a hangout and tell people, here's the public link to the hangout. The same way that they do it in the Ruby thing that they have every month that's online.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm down for that too. That's totally fine.
But let everybody jump in and just start talking. What do you like about Jekyll? What don't you like about Jekyll? Tell me your problems that we have ignored accidentally.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think in the State of Jekyll issue that I initially created, the idea was to get kind of like to think big, think as big as we can about it. It would be cool, like eventually, and I think we talked about it at one point, but I'm not really sure if I remember. I could have been dreaming. I don't know. For us to all like meet up in person, like in San Francisco or something like that, and like have actual talks about Jekyll if we could, have like a Jekyll convention kind of thing. It doesn't have to be big, obviously. It can just be. I mean, I don't know if GitHub would be willing to host something like that, but it might be worth checking out and exploring.
Totally.
I would be fine with any city but San Francisco, and I will explain that in a private conversation.
Damn it, man! You're not helping.
How about Oakland?
I would be fine with Oakland.
Cool. I work in Oakland. I love Oakland. I think Oakland's a fantastic place. I think Oakland is easy to get to as well from San Francisco. So if you are in San Francisco and are interested in attending, then it would be easy to get to. We'd have to find a venue, if not the office in which I work. But yeah, that's a great idea. A convention or not?
Yeah, it'd be really fun.
Sounds so funny.
I would have to know at least 6 months ahead because my schedule is pretty crazy. I don't know what's happening from one week to the next. But if I had enough time, I could say, this is for sure going to happen. This is 6 months from now. I'm not changing it.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing that would take months and months and months of planning in the very beginning phases anyway. So, I mean, that's not the kind of thing. I mean, unless we just wanted to go get some beer or something like that, which I'm totally down for also.
Yeah, but if you have to grab a plane ticket, it's a little bit more difficult.
I guess.
Come for a beer. Come for the weekend.
Yeah.
All right. What?
A 3-hour flight just to catch a flight. Another 3-hour flight for me.
Hey, I happen to love flying, so. Anyway, I think I'm gonna close this thing down, and I'm gonna close the issue that originally spawned this thing, and I'll make a new one talking about next month's.
Cool.
I think that would be better.
Reference back. Sorry?
We should do a wiki topic instead of an actual ticket. Just create a wiki topic that anybody can edit.
Wiki.
I mean, yeah, dude, feel free. If you want to do that, I'm gonna make an issue that's gonna be specific to next month's, I guess, whatever town hall meeting that we're gonna call this. And then if you want to do something for that, go ahead and make an issue for that as well. Totally cool with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I guess that's about it.
Yeah, thanks a lot for
doing this. This is a a lot of fun. I had a great time.
Appreciate it. I know Friday night is a night of jubilation and a crazy time in all of our lives, and appreciate you guys taking the time.
Well, there's no other place I'd rather be than right here.
Oh, that's great.
It's a crazy night for me, so I ain't got no problem. I program while I'm drunk, so it's okay.
That's the spirit. I love it. Anyway, I'll see you guys later. All right, take it easy.
Take it easy.
I'll still be around if you guys want to do a hangout with the guys that are currently viewing.
Okay. Yeah, dude, make a new issue right now and talk to them about it. I'm going to go play some computer games. I've got a brand new computer that I literally just built today, and I want to play it. So I'm going to go do that.
Cool.
So
I'll
try to
see you guys next time.
invite you guys, Parker.